Senator McCorman, Senator Kaine. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations, Representative Stefanik, for the nomination. I really appreciated the meeting that we had in our office. You and I have some political differences, of course, but we talked that day about items on which we agree. We had some on which we disagreed, and we had a couple of others where you said, your position is one that President Trump doesn't agree with. And I like that candor, and I like the fact that we had a good exchange. I'm grappling with that, and some of the partisan comments you've made in the past. An article that I'd like to put in the Record National Public Radio article, How the Replacement Theory Went Mainstream on the Political Right, from May of 2022. On Monday morning, Stefanik tweeted, Democrats desperately want wide open borders and mass amnesty for illegals, allowing them to vote. I'd like to put that in the record. Without objection, it will be included. Now, that was a campaign tweet, and I can separate campaign rhetoric from governing rhetoric. I don't view things like that as disqualifying. They do raise questions. Senator Tim Kaine didn't hold back during Representative Elise Stefanik's confirmation hearing, zeroing in on a past tweet that raised eyebrows about her stance on border control and amnesty. What followed was a sharp clash that peeled back the polished veneer of Stefanik's public image and exposed the contradictions in her record. Kaine grilled her on whether she still stands by the rhetoric in that post, pressing her to clarify whether she supports hardline enforcement or backdoor leniency. Stefanik, clearly uncomfortable, tried to deflect with political buzzwords, but Kaine kept coming, framing her past statements as part of a broader pattern of doublespeak that panders to both the MAGA base and moderate voters. This wasn't just a petty exchange about an old tweet. It was a test of credibility. Kaine put Stefanik in the hot seat, forcing a conversation about immigration policy that many in Congress would rather dodge. But at least we had a good meeting. We talked about important issues and shared ideas. I'm going to say something here that I wish I could have said at an Armed Services Committee hearing, but we had it in closed session. All of the Trump nominees who come before the committees on which I sit have agreed to meet with me, save one, a Secretary of Defense nominee, Pete Hegseth. He's written that he thinks Democrats are evil. He's written that he thinks Democrats are the adversary. And he refused to meet with any Democrat on the Armed Services Committee. Save the chairman. Save the chairman. Yesterday, in a closed hearing, we were asked to forward his nomination to the floor, even though it had not been pending to the committee for sufficient time. My colleagues asked, hey, why would we give a waiver to someone who wouldn't even agree to meet with us? That nominee would disrespect Democrats. Okay, that's fine. But I didn't think my committee colleagues would on the Armed Services Committee would have disrespected us. And I'll just say to all of my Republican colleagues here, if there is ever a nominee by any president who refuses to come meet with you when you're on the committee of jurisdiction overseeing that nominee, Senator Tim Kaine is calling out the hypocrisy loud and clear, and it's about time someone did. During a heated moment, Kaine slammed his Republican colleagues for pushing forward a nominee who outright refused to meet with Democratic senators, completely disregarding the basic norms of a bipartisan confirmation process. This isn't just political snubbing. It's a deliberate tactic to sidestep accountability. And let's not forget, this comes right after Kaine questioned Elise Stefanik over a past tweet highlighting a pattern of selective outrage on the GOP side. When Stefanik peddles controversial rhetoric, Republicans rally around her. But when a nominee won't even show basic respect to half the Senate, they're silent or worse, complicit. Kaine's critique cuts deep because it exposes the double standard at the core of how nominees are being vetted and confirmed in today's toxic political climate. I will publicly raise hell on your behalf. Nominees should meet with the committees, just as Representative Stefanik did. And Representative Stefanik While I have a question about some of the campaign rhetoric, I'm not going to ask you about it because that's in the past. I do appreciate the fact that you are courteous, informed, civil, and candid in the meeting with me. I told you I had two concerns: engagement and the Western Hemisphere. You've convinced me that you were nominated for this position, not to disengage, but to engage, and I appreciate that. In fact, you wanted this position, and you wouldn't have wanted it otherwise, and that's great. On the Western Hemisphere, you're going to be working with the Secretary of State. We approved unanimously yesterday, our colleague Senator Rubio. Senator Rubio talked at some length about a number of topics on the Americas the other day, and I want to ask you about one that is particularly challenging right now, and that's Haiti. The situation in Haiti is a disaster. You know that. I mean, you've been on these committees overseeing American national security, and you know that issues like Haiti create immigration challenges and all kinds of other challenges that are bad on the humanitarian front and can cause problems for allies like the Dominican Republic, can cause problems for us. We now have a security operation in Haiti being led by Kenyans with the assistance of other nations, with the financial support and assistance of the United States. Senator Rubio talked at some length here last week about how important it was that we stay engaged on that. I'd like to know kind of what your thought would be, should you be confirmed at the UN, for what the UC do to try to help Haitians find a next chapter that is a peaceful one. In a rare moment of substantive exchange, Senator Tim Kaine and Representative Elise Stefanik dug into some serious ground during her confirmation hearing, starting with Kaine pressing her on a past tweet that stirred controversy. But instead of staying stuck in partisan jabs, the conversation took a sharp turn toward real policy, specifically the U.S. role in stabilizing Haiti. Kaine zeroed in on the country's deepening crisis, connecting the dots between Haiti's collapse, rising migration pressures, and the broader implications for U.S. national security. He challenged Stefanik to articulate a clear position on whether America should play a proactive role in helping Haiti find a peaceful and democratic future. Stefanik, to her credit, engaged on the issue, showing that beneath the political noise, there's still room for dialogue on foreign policy that actually matters. Kaine's approach wasn't just about scoring points. It was about putting real-world crises back on the agenda. Yes, thank you, Senator Kaine. Appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you. I know we serve on the National Endowment for Democracy together, and there's been significant bipartisan results delivered through that program funded by Congress. I wanted to just point out I stand strongly for border security. And that was what the tweet you referenced was related to. And I would point out that in the sector that I represent, the Swanton sector, there was a Border Patrol officer killed in the last 24 hours. Are there any Democratic senators that you think are for open border and mass amnesty for illegal undocumented? Well, I would point out that Democratic think tanks and rhetorics have talked. I'm asking about senators. Any Democratic senators you would level that charge against? I think there are Democrat senators who have supported open borders. What I was doing is clarifying when you pointed out a headline from an article, not a headline, a quote of yours, what the campaign, which was related to border security, and we just had an overwhelming popular vote for President Trump, where border security was top of the mind. I do stand by I think it's important to note, I do stand by my standing up for strong borders, and the American people overwhelmingly support that. Related to your question and my time is over, so let me just conclude and say this. When I've been on this committee and in the Senate, I was part of a bipartisan deal to put $46 billion. $46 billion of border security on the table that the House Republican majority killed. Things got heated fast when Senator Tim Kaine confronted Elise Stefanik over a past tweet that painted her as soft on border security. Kaine wasn't buying the deflection. He pushed back hard, calling out what he sees as a pattern Stefanik, trying to distance herself from the open borders and amnesty. Accusations while simultaneously aligning with Trump's hardline rhetoric. But Kaine didn't stop there. He went further, highlighting that Stefanik had been involved in bipartisan immigration deals that could have moved the needle on real reform, only to see those efforts torched by her own party and Donald Trump himself. This wasn't just a spat over a tweet. It was a spotlight on how GOP messaging on immigration flips, depending on the political winds. Kaine exposed the contradiction between Stefanik's public stance and the legislative reality, painting her as a politician more focused on scoring points than delivering